My first mentor was a program manager at Microsoft that worked in our hardware division. I was a producer on the Internet Gaming Zone.
Check out the Internet Gaming Zone
and play multiplayer games.
He taught me this idea of the product triangle. It's a very simple way to make decisions about products and then explain those decisions to the team and to management and your publisher and all of the different people who want to weigh in on what you add to your game. On every product, there are three things you can control as the producer. The cost, so how much you're spending on it. That could be in marketing, that could be your building costs, your people costs. It can also be the equipment that you're using, the licenses of other software. For example, if you're using Unreal Engine or Unity, you have to include all those costs into the cost of the game. So that's your cost part of the triangle. The second point on the triangle is time. Every game has a desired ship date. Every console manufacturer or platform holder is going to want to have a steady stream of games shipping throughout the year, because then anytime they log on to their Xbox or onto their PlayStation, they're going to have something awesome to play. And that date can slip depending on what choices you make. For example, if you decide to add a bunch of features and you don't have people to do that, that means those features are going to add to the schedule because they're going to get tacked onto the end because you don't have any room in your schedule to put those features in. The third part of the triangle is the quality point. People don't like to call the third point on the triangle quality, but it is. People like to call it features because in their mind, oh, it's just about whether we're adding new features or not. Well, it's not. You actually are going to ship with bugs, and part of the quality discussion is how many bugs you're going to ship with and how many bugs you're going to fix based on the amount of time and money you have available for improving the quality of your game. Let's take a few examples. The first example is Gears of War. So I joined the Gears of War team right after launching XNA. The challenge with Gears is that we needed to have it on the shelves to ship at the same time that Sony was launching the PlayStation 3. We had to have a great exclusive game that really showed off the box. And the only other game we had at the time was Viva Pinata. When we started to see how far behind we were, we started to look for ways that we could improve the quality of the game and make sure we still hit the date. Well, what that meant is we brought our costs way up. For example, we decided to have testers 24/7. It was pretty easy to do because Epic was located in North Carolina, East Coast time, and we're on the West Coast in Redmond, Washington. So Microsoft was able to have testers for half of the day, and Epic would have it for the other half. The time the testers from Redmond came in, there were several bugs that had already been fixed that were found the night before. And we were finding bugs almost immediately as they went into the game. And then the Epic developers, who were by far the fastest bug fixing group I've ever seen, they fixed bugs 3 times faster than any other game developer at Microsoft at the time. That costs a lot of money. Having testers on 24/7, that was not cheap. But because it was so important to hit our date and because it was so important to have a high quality game, Microsoft spent the money. We also did things like moving half of the team over to Raleigh in order to work on site. It's tough on the team, but they did it, and it was tough on Microsoft because it was expensive, but in the end it paid off. We were able to get Gears of War out the door on time, and yeah, it did cost a lot more than we had hoped. Time I was working on Gears of War, I had another title called Zoo Tycoon. Zoo Tycoon at that point was expansion packs. Nowadays you would just go online and download some content, maybe on a rapid basis. Maybe even with Zoo Tycoon you'd have a new animal every week. I don't know. At the time, if you wanted new content for a core game like Zoo Tycoon, you had to wait for the expansion packs. Most of the content was being bought in stores, and that meant that you had to have your game on shelf by holiday, because if you didn't, you lost 30% of your sales. So we had the games on shelf for holiday, and in order to make those dates, you had to make some hard decisions. People always want more, right? This is one of the things I love about working in games, is that people always want to pack more awesome into their games. It's a good thing. But unfortunately, if you're trying to hit this rhythm of every holiday with Zoo Tycoon, you can't just add things. You really have to plan very carefully and make sure that you're always considering that date that you have to hit. During this time, Microsoft management would do these portfolio reviews. And what they would do is they would have every product team kind of put together this presentation, usually with PowerPoint, explaining where they were, what their risks were, how they were managing those risks, and whether or not they're going to hit their dates. In those meetings, a lot of the managers who are working across the organization like to give feedback about the product. This was always tough because they weren't necessarily thinking about everything around the product. They weren't being paid to do that. And so a lot of the times they would want things that would be too costly. But the product triangle made it really easy to explain to them why they couldn't have what they were looking for. Let me give you an example on Zoo Tycoon. This is how that meeting might go. You're in the meeting, you're going through the data, and a manager that absolutely loves Zoo Tycoon suggests that you add 3 more animals. You don't have to argue with that manager. You can agree that it would be absolutely wonderful to have more features. But then your job as the producer is to lay out what that means for the product using the triangle. Let's look at our options. We have to concept, model, rig, texture, and animate each one. On the plus side, we can do all 3 animals at the same time. The bad news is that, unfortunately, our art team is fully booked until content complete, which means we're really looking at a full 3-month slip, and so we won't be on shelves until mid-February because, of course, you've got holidays in there and the staff's going to be off for the holidays. So, yeah, we're probably talking February, probably March even at the earliest. But, yeah, we can absolutely do it. A good producer is like a mirror. If someone wants to make a change, fine. The producer will calculate how the changes will impact the original goals. And these are goals that everybody agreed to, the publisher, the developer, the team. A good producer helps the team live in the reality of their choices. That's one of the big jobs, and the triangle is a useful tool for helping you explain what those trade-offs are. So use the product triangle because it's awesome and it will save you a lot of time and a lot of pain when you're trying to figure out what to do to make sure your game ships on time at high quality and hopefully at a lower cost.